Afternoon, Wits University students have marched in solidarity with Kenya. The march symbolized the remembrance of almost 150 victims who were killed in a terrorist attack at Kenya's Garissa University. Wits students added their voices to the growing condemnation of the massacre. The attack was the deadliest in the East African country since the 1998 United States Embassy bombings. More than 79 other students were also injured. Gunmen took more than 700 students hostage, freeing Muslims and killing those they identified as Christians. The siege ended the same day with 4 attackers killed and 5 others arrested in connection with the attack. And now for more on that story, we are joined right here in studio by our reporter, Ms. Griselda Lewis. Griselda, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Alicia.
Griselda, you were at the march. Please give us a bit of the details on this march. Who organized it and why?
Alicia, it's quite, devastating what we saw happen at the Garissa University, of course. So Wits University decided that these are students who were killed at Garissa, but who are of the same age, the same ethnicity, some of them. Some Kenyans also who go to Wits University decided that it would really be a fantastic idea to raise amongst the many other voices against this attack at Garissa. So they decided to bring this together and say, not in our name, attacks such as this should be condemned not only by South Africa, but by the rest of the continent and, of course, by the rest of the world. So we saw hundreds of students really march on campus. They also invited some dignitaries from the High Commission, the Kenyan High Commission here in South Africa, in Pretoria, and certainly to send out a message that, institutions such as universities, technicons or colleges or whatever the case may be are institutions that are there for learning purposes, and when kids go onto those premises, it should really be safe environments, and attacks such as this should actually never take place.
Griselda, you mentioned earlier that Wits does indeed have some Kenyan students. What did they say about this particular attack?
Really, it's been some time, since this attack, but you can really, sympathize with the students that we spoke to. Many of them are saying they may be living in South Africa, but they've got relatives. They've got brothers and sisters who either escaped or were killed in this incident at Garissa. So, many are saying or calling on the Kenyan government also, to provide the kind of security that is needed at universities. It's a constitutional right to have this kind of safety at universities, but clearly this is not the case. And I mean, on the backdrop of, the Nairobi mall massacre as well, if I may put it that way, and, people really pointing out, hectic security issues in Nairobi, which they feel the government should really prioritize on. So really, some of those that we spoke to are saying that more needs to be done. Africa needs to continue to speak out against acts of terrorism, and something needs to be done about these Al-Shabaab militants.
And what about the South African students? Why did they participate in this march, Griselda?
Look, as we say, a solidarity march, Alicia, these are their peers in Kenya, even though they may be in South Africa in an environment that did not have such a situation. But these are future leaders. Some of the placards, Alicia, that were quite interesting read, we are future doctors, we are future psychologists, we are future presidents. So really, the kids that were killed, the students that were killed at Garissa are people who would have contributed perhaps at a later stage to the betterment of Kenya and to the betterment of their own lives. And that has now been cut short. So hence they're able to look at that and say, this could have been us. It could have been one of us anywhere around the world, at any university around the world. So South Africa has the duty to speak out about instances such as this.
Because it might happen to us in the future, Griselda. Now, Griselda, you did mention that the students called some Kenyan authorities, but who else was there besides the students at this march?
Look, you had Amnesty International as well. Amnesty International also condemning in the strongest terms what happened at Garissa. And, many others as well, activists, from around Johannesburg who participated in the march as well, to say that this doesn't concern just Kenya. It concerns South Africa. It should concern the rest of the world. And, in particular, if you're looking at, the students that were just massacred and, just blood strewn everywhere, lives cut short. So, the participation, which they're saying will continue also, Alicia, not just today, but many other functions and other, programs that they will try and ensure, that people are given more education about this, and education condemning incidents such as this, in particular attacks on innocent women and children, not just in Kenya but around the world.
Criselda, thank you so much for your time right here on PM News. Well, that's our Criselda Lewis with us here in studio, telling us about a march by students to show solidarity with the Garissa attack victims.